All right, and we are back. Happy Monday. A couple minutes late, everybody. Sorry, we got sidetracked talking about some of the topics tonight. We got a little into it. It was a fun debate. And so here we are nonetheless, episode 92 of the Leonis Support this Monday, February 10th. JB, what's going on, buddy? Good to see you again.
It's going pretty good, Just a pretty chill day today after another snowy weekend. Had the Super Bowl last night. Kept it pretty low key. Didn't usually we had kind of have a party with friends, and we didn't end up doing that this year, but made some good food and watched the game. Wasn't all that great of a game. It was pretty one-sided. But how about you? How was the weekend?
It was great. Honestly, didn't do a whole lot. We got snow yesterday over the weekend, so clearing that out in the morning. But watched the Super Bowl, and I was very happy. I'm very anti-Chiefs, so even though it may not have been the most competitive, I got a hell of a lot of entertainment out of it, just being able to cheer them on. But
Yeah, I'm no Eagles fan, but I had to
no,
root for them yesterday.
lesser of two evils. It's just
Yeah.
Saquon
I'm sick of
Barkley.
seeing the Chiefs win at this
Yeah,
point.
absolutely. No, no way, no way. They can keep working for it, and I didn't want to give them the three-peat, the three in a row. That was a piece of history I didn't want them to take. So,
It's been a minute since somebody did that. Yeah.
I think ever. I don't think they've ever had a three in a row,
Never?
which is why it was going to be unprecedented. That was one thing that I didn't want them to have in their resume. Thank you to Jalen Hurts and the Eagles, but we do have. I won't say like a lot of new content per se because we did cover most of this last week. We thought we were getting some of this a lot sooner, primarily the Mont Vision card and the Trial of Reckoning item that's coming out. But in lieu of that, we have some honestly really fun discussion topics. We're going to look at the JP roadmap after this. We have Grand Arena to talk a little bit about. We have 6 different hot takes that are very interesting on their own that I think honestly segue perfectly into our tier list, which is really kind of the big highlight tonight. And so I think we're just going to very briefly go over some of the new content. Again, for those that really want a super in depth conversation, I would recommend going to last week's Leonis Support. It should be timestamped. But still want to make sure we give this the visibility it deserves. This vision card, I'll just sum this up real quick to me. This is a vision card that's perfect if you pulled King Mont, and if you want to use him in either your gun teams or your dagger teams and bow by extension. To me, this card, while it's still a great card for greatsword overall and even for the others, it's honestly a very good vision card. I don't think it necessarily does anything distinctly unique from a stat perspective. This to me is more like opening doors for Mont in particular to really be a good third unit. It is still a valuable pull for any of them. I think you can make cases why you'd use it. But that to me, if I were to say like who really needs this, to my answer would be like, well, if you got Mont, you want to branch him out, like this card's going to make it happen.
I agree with that. I mean, I think it's obviously it's great for the greatsword team, but I would make a case for the dagger, the evade girls team. Like maybe if you, especially if you missed out on Winter Perine's vision card, which is typically brought in as like the unit resist card of that team. This one is, I think, just as good, getting the unit resist and attack percent combo there. So if like I said, if you missed Winter Perine's card, I think it fits pretty nicely in that team. Also, looking at the bow group, we're going to talk about the JP roadmap, but there are some incoming bow units, probably some more to come this year. So, if you're interested in that team, and then obviously the gun team, another good card for them. So, um, I think it's really, threading the needle pretty nicely into several of the teams they've been building out here early on.
Totally agreed. Yeah, no, absolutely. And the other thing that's coming out this week is the Trial of Reckoning, that whole style of content. And alongside that is a brand new UR level accessory that you can get. I think we tended to prefer one or of each kind of shield and barrier, so I would farm enough recipes so that you could have 2 different builds. I think we concluded that you would never really have any of these units together in the same party all that quite often, so you may not need a couple for a singular party. But we did like the effects on this. Again, I would recommend going to last week to really get some more in-depth thoughts. But I think this is a great accessory for Gilgamesh and Exdeath. It may not be necessarily best in slot, but I think you're going to be seeing it equipped in a variety of matchups. I can absolutely see where you get the bang for your buck. But even the old Final Fantasy V units, I think 2 thumbs up. I think they did a lot of good things. Maybe not everything, but those are older units, and I think they were appropriate buffs for them.
I do like getting the stun resist on there because it's been getting harder and harder to fit in all these different ailment resists that are going
Absolutely.
around the meta. So anytime you can pull that in on an equipment that's also getting you unit resist, might have some, decent general use maybe for some other units even outside of the collaboration.
Totally agree. That's one of those ones that the stun from Venera will like single-handedly win them the fight in many instances, just from the nature of how they're able to lap you with speed and chain things down and not take the damage and keep their null sure hit maybe a little bit longer, or live through the null sure. That's what I meant. But yeah, the stun was a killer. So to get that for free and be able to maximize your passives elsewhere, that's a really nice value for this. I love it as a general piece, just as you said. Absolutely.
Yeah, I can see myself maybe throwing that on a support most often, where you don't want to get that key stun and miss a heal or something like that. So could be
Right.
nice.
I like it. I like it. All right, cool. Well, that's most of it for like brand new content. We've had the mock trial today for the Grand Arena, which is technically starting on. Oh my god, it says the 6th, but I know that's wrong. I'm sorry, that's guild map. Where is it? Did I pass it? I must have passed it. No.
Scroll up a little bit here.
Oh, there we go. The 12th. So 2 days from now, when assumedly the new patch drops. I'm assuming we're gonna get news. Actually, we'll probably get news tomorrow.
Yeah, we should get the news tomorrow. So today was the first mock day. Tomorrow is going to be a second mock day. And then on Wednesday, we should start the actual Grand Arena proper. So
Yep. The really exciting thing about this is that it's 4v4, which new for us. We've only done 5v5 and 3v3. I've liked it so far. This map is a very interesting map. I didn't have it ready to necessarily like strategize over, but it's relatively short in the sense that you can get baited kind of easily by units across from you, depending upon your range. And there's this like divider in the middle of some awkward heights that people can't readily like jump over and buff each other. It's been very interesting to play with so far. Obviously, King Mont and X Death are the two big bonus units, so I do expect them to be featured pretty heavily, and particularly when you consider the vision cards, really kind of favor X Death. It's mostly the X Death card, and then the Veritas card, the Ice and Water one, is the other bonus one, which does technically benefit Mont. A handful of others. I don't know if I have any strong predictions yet about what the strongest teams are going to be. I would imagine it might be a blend of both, quite honestly, because I think both those units can splash into a variety of teams pretty easily and thrive on their own. That I don't think you're going to get one kind of team like last time where it was really just like evade only, and you had the two evade girls and they just ran the table. I think this one's a little more wide open.
I can definitely see that. Maybe like you said, splashing different units together. I can see probably like a multi-job team, maybe faring pretty well. Maybe even going like mono elements could be something that we see again. I know that was pretty popular when we had the 5 versus 5 battles. Um, but in terms of like the greatsword team, like if you were trying to build that, the bonus cards aren't as good for that, especially if you didn't grab like the X Death card. Um, Technically, it does work for greatsword, so you could throw it on Mont and kind of just get the area resist. But unfortunately, the rest of it doesn't really help out him too much. So far, like kind of mocking it today, I have played around a little bit with Black Mage, played around a little bit with Greatsword. It's going to be kind of a bloodbath, I think.
I think so too.
Unless, I mean, you could play Evade still, maybe, and just have like Mont tank. You would still probably be dropping some points there, but I think that there is going to be some, potentially some teams to expose there. So I don't know. I'm probably not going to go hard this time.
No.
I went hard last time when I said I wasn't, so I won't take it off the table, but I'm not planning on it. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I'm glad that they're doing it though. I like that they're playing around with the format and changing things up and keeping it interesting at least.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I do think Mont overall is a great rainbow unit that even if the cards don't benefit him, I think he could probably still be part of a great team. Maybe not the number one overall team, because obviously you're talking about max bonus points or max points that at that time. And if he's kind of a sacrificial lamb and either dying most fights or getting low health because he doesn't have the right vision cards to support him, you obviously wouldn't maximize your points in that way. But Yeah, this is going to be interesting because I don't know many teams where you can just like not take any damage, and even from a support perspective, like a lot of times you'll have a support on the like the wrong side of the map from the other two that you'll get like a little mini 2v2 on either side of the map typically when it starts, and at that point then everyone kind of converges on the middle. So I think no matter what, people are going to be taking damage, which by the nature of taking damage diminishes how many max points you can get until you potentially regenerate it, which at that point you're just kind of hoping that a support heals you up to full. um, yeah, I'm playing with some staff black mage stuff personally. I can think of a lot of really great teams, but I can't think of a team that beats everything. Um, that's the problem I'm coming to. That sure in my head I can think of like 4 or 5 different iterations that I think are good, but I think all of them have a weakness that is going to keep me out of any kind of top scores, which I'm okay with. I'm just looking to complete the accessory at this point. I'm like 20 recipes away, so when I get my 20 recipes, I'm just gonna have fun with this and let it roll and see where the cards fall.
Keep it casual.
Yeah.
I
Nope.
do know that speaking of three-peat from earlier, I'm wondering if Leols will be able
Oh.
to get a three-peat here.
Yep.
We talked about it just a couple of weeks ago when I came in second. Leols had two in a row for this, so that I'll be interested to see what he comes up with and if he can compete there once again.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Looking forward to it nonetheless. But um, that's it for new content of the week based on our preliminary stuff against some mastery abilities being upgraded for a couple units, but we won't get into that again this week. But we figured this would be a good time for some free-form discussion around the JP roadmap. This is technically probably the most insight we've had from like a scheduling perspective, where because they didn't release Mont's vision card with him and kind of broke him up with X Death, as opposed to JP, we have a week for this card, we have a week for Maevia, we have a vision card coming out for her, which is the Dad Bomb Esper and vision card, Foset, her corresponding vision card, and then after that, some people in chat already called it out. We have Young O announced here. So we new Water Katana unit and the Dark Esper that comes along too. So there's quite a lot of information here to see what we have for the next 5 weeks. I know people are looking forward to a collaboration too. Potentially should be like any day or a week now. And even from this timeline, in terms of like 5 to 6 weeks, 5 to 6 weeks from today puts us close to the anniversary for JP. So even then, you start talking about do we get simultaneous drops with whatever they have. So this is a unique time, I think, relative to the past like couple months. I don't even know where to kick this off. I mean, what do you think about the roadmap so far? Like anything stick out to you, or where you want to take this?
So I mean, we could kind of give our general thoughts, like
Yeah.
on where these units fit in, and if we think they're like knee-jerk reaction. Are they somebody that we definitely need to pull? Kind of in light of that, what you just said, uh, it just smells like something big is right around the corner. Whether they're blowing it out with a new collaboration or rerunning something and either upgrading units or adding a new unit to an old favorite collab. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. There haven't been hints yet, but it just whenever they drop two big things in one week in JP, I'm like, okay, this is like they're trying to deplete people's Visior here because they're going to bang it out with something big here in the next 1 to 2 weeks. So
Yep.
my spider sense was kind of tingling when I saw like a Dark Esper and a 100 cost unit all in the same week.
Absolutely valid. I agree with that. Yeah, so I guess we can kick things off with Mavia here then. I know commonly Maevia I think is at first glance seen as the primary counter to the Shrek Death team, Shrek and X Death, just by the nature of what she does from a utility perspective of like removing their re-raise, and she can reduce their unit res penetration. There's a bunch of utility that she brings, and we've seen this alignment of bow and greatsword in such a way that I think it looks like she's kind of a good pairing for Mont. At least that's what they were aiming for, because Mont's biggest perceived weakness is X Death. I don't know if we've necessarily seen that yet on our side of things. We're still kind of testing the waters with the interactions, but I think that was one of the first things that people thought of when looking at Mavia. Obviously, her ice aligns with Jaden and her. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'll pause there, but yeah, Mavia in particular, yeah.
Yeah, so another ranged unit. This time, like you said, it's a bow unit, which we haven't had one since Fina, right? Or I mean, you could throw in Lightning Veritas technically, but we haven't had like a gotcha bow unit since Fina.
Yep.
And even before that, it had been a while with Shadow Links, very early last year. And none of the bow units have really been making much of a dent in the meta.
No.
There's been pockets where there's, maybe some flashes of something, but never really culminating in anything, that's breaking into the top meta. So this unit I think is very, very good. Um, and she does solve that Shrek Death team, or at least can be part of that solution. At this point, though, I just think that there's many different solutions to that team that we're already finding,
Yep.
that it doesn't really feel all that suffocating to need this unit for many players, I would say. However, ice water is some people might go for it just for that. Like I'm personally big in those elements, so I'm gonna pull her for that reason. But outside of that, I don't think that there's like an absolute need for this unit at the moment,
No, I would agree with.
especially
Oh yeah.
like because she's permanent pool.
Always, that's like the first consideration. Totally, is the FOMO aspect of whether or not you can get her at a later time. Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I don't think there's necessarily a need for her. I personally am likely going to be passing on this unit, but I do see what they're trying to do. I think her utility of reducing unit res pen is very strong. We've seen a couple units that can do it. Nickel can do it, but doesn't really have the chops to really play with the meta. Thancred can do it, and he has. I think it's been very good how he's leveraged it. But hers from range, including the additional follow up, like the removal of the follow up attacks for certain kind of units, the having the efficacy of buffs on enemies. Like when I think of like X Death, he can increase his magic res pen. This can technically like have it if he's trying to like, I don't know, repopulate it after a certain amount of time. The re-raise removal from range, that means you can't get it sealed as easily. So there's a lot of things to generally like here. And I do think that they're kind of, and I'm going to segue this in just to kind of keep this moving. I think they're trying to do something here, obviously, with the Dad Bomb vision card. The very interesting thing about this is that one of the main party modifiers is Ice Attack of 35, which first time they've done that to put an element attack on a card. I honestly don't love it, quite frankly, but I can see where I think they're trying to align her with Jaden because this is technically like a gun oriented card too that you think of the two of them together. But I genuinely just don't think that she's an upgrade to Yuna in that pairing. I mean, the whole benefit of Jaden Yuna is the fact that she can pass on that teammate buff to him, and you got to get double dose application of it. And I just don't think Maevia brings that same like utility on the teammate buff here. That's a great pairing. Obviously, it seems to line up, but I don't love it. And this Esper is a missile attack oriented Esper. It's got a bunch of nodes for it, but even this Esper, like I'm kind of underwhelmed overall by the board. This is a small modifier increase. This is like the increased damage done, the cost of the more TP, but like 20 modifier, I don't think is like it's good. But I don't know if it's like a must pull Esper for that. And the rest of the missile attack nodes, like we've kind of solved this point with the human killer Espers, and outside of this board, it's kind of pedestrian. Like, all right, critical rate is cool, I guess, but the acquired AP is semi negligible. I mean, 25% is more than we were just talking about the Sahagan Prince this morning, who's got I think 15% acquired AP. Again, all this small stuff does add up. The stun res for free is kind of nice on this Esper, but like I don't know if it's even a must pull for Maevia per se. I'm really intrigued that they decided to go that direction.
I can see that. Personally, I do like that stun resist. I think that's one of the better things about it. I think the other stuff is
Oh no, I
kind
like.
of.
Did I downplay that? I was applauding it.
Oh,
That you
okay.
get it. Yeah, no, I agree with you. Kind of like the Child of Reckoning item we're just talking about. It's like sunrise for free. Yeah.
I think that's my favorite thing about it. I wish that maybe they could have made it like an accurate Esper, maybe just to make it a little bit. I would have liked that maybe more than crit rates. So just like the overall blend of the trees here is, it feels more like one of the old good Espers rather than the new ones, which
Yeah.
have a little bit more unique nodes to them. But I don't think it's a bad one. Even like the ice attack on the card, it does come along with the agility. So I mean, if you're mixing her specifically with Jaden, it's pretty nice. But otherwise, I agree. It doesn't feel as good. Like it could have been something else that maybe like luck or you know, some defensive effect maybe even would have been nice. But I don't know. It's
Yeah.
another permanent addition, so I don't think it's a must pull by any means, unless you're building that ice team.
I would agree with that. Right. Unless you're specifically building her, that will you don't want to half bake some of these teams. If you go for a unit, you kind of want to go all for it, just because it if you go only halfway, you'll never get the full benefit of what you've invested. And by the time you do get it down the line, that unit may have already faded into the sunset. Um, but no, that does cover kind of that. But they weren't done with that. They continued the missile, and this was kind of our hot take last week, trying to think about if they were ushering in a missile meta of sorts. And I still don't know if they necessarily are. I still see this as them like resetting the table for missile attackers in general. Foset is kind of like a frontline oriented gun unit, and you can clearly tell that by the reincarnation they decided to give her. This is similar to Barrett, who was unique in that sense, and this does look to be a solid unit. I think they've given her the tools to compete in the style that she's meant to, particularly if you think of the overlap with someone like Mont and Gunn, who we were just talking about, where if she gets access to that physical aura, that obviously adds another component of the survivability. When we talk about her as an earth element, we know that ice and earth tend to go very well together, just on the fact that, like, you have Falset as this earth unit, people bring wind, you have a ice unit like Jaden or Maevia to be able to kind of counterbalance it. So I can see what they're going for here. I still have yet to really see anything that like makes her pop off the screen as like a big addition to the account. The thing that I'm really looking for from this unit is she the kind of third unit that you could run triple gun with? Because and honestly I don't know if that it will ever necessarily be the case. We've tinkered a little bit with that with like Light Veritas, who's a very competent gun unit, and I haven't seen the great results from a triple gun team. So maybe she solves that by being a different kind of gunner, as that like frontline gunner with the shorter range and whatnot. But again, I don't know if she adds a truly different dimension to what we have right now, other than just like a numbers perspective. I don't know. Yeah, yeah,
To me, it feels like she's more designed to work with Mont than really like the other gunners,
yeah, yeah.
and kind of how her play style is, because she doesn't have hate. Like she's not a tank, and like even I think she gets negative hate, like maybe as part of her re-raise or one of her buffs or something. But she's got like the barrier protection, and she puts on mid-fight barriers. She's got like a really interesting new healing mechanic where if she takes multi-hit damage, then she will heal back actually a pretty significant amount. I've seen up to like 5 to 6K, depending on the build. And that's including not only chaining attacks, but also like follow-up attacks. So I feel like that she can really be almost punishing against those kind of attackers, where they'll almost do negative damage against you.
Yep.
So I don't know. I can see some interesting things about her. My main problem with this unit, and I said it right from the beginning, is that she tops out at 5 range on her like spammable abilities, and she doesn't have a range buff like innately in the kit. No, she does have a range up passive, but it's not one that you're ideally looking to use. Um, Her accuracy also, I think, could have been a little bit better, because this particular accuracy passive is my least favorite in the game, the one from Pugilist.
I agree.
I absolutely hate that passive.
Me too.
So I wish they gave her Strider or one of the better like accuracy passives that maybe brought in the defense pen or something.
Yep.
Um, but I think it's a decent unit. Again, I don't think this is like a must pull or that like she's dominating. You know, I think she's playable. Like she's good in certain teams. It's just like another look, another thing that people can mix in and play different matchups. And that's kind of like I feel like almost all of these units, post Mont. I
Yeah.
feel like Mont is kind of a cornerstone unit going forward. He mixes into a lot of different teams that they're kind of building out, and these pieces here are some of those building blocks that you can put alongside them potentially.
Absolutely agreed. Totally. And her vision card is one that I know that you'd kind of even head scratched at in terms of what they decided to give overall. I'll be honest, I don't mind this vision card just on objective analysis. I think it's once you start to really like team build with it that you can think of maybe some more effective ways they could have created this card. But it's 42 missile attack, 28% luck, and 30 chain res. I know again this is not one of those ones where you see a lot of main slot attributes that you would typically look for, but sometimes beggars can't be choosers if you really need the luck percent. Sometimes you're forced to just put it in that main slot. But I know when you're thinking of this as like a sub slot vision card, there is a fair amount of missile attack floating around. I think the Jading card has one. There is the old Luartha card, Pursuers, I believe is the name of it, that has some. But I think what makes this at least a little bit of a leg up is that it's gun and bow. So this is again a recurring trend that they are continuing to connect both of these classes, and at least this card does that. So that to me is where I think this card gets the value, even if the party attributes weren't like perfectly curated. But I do like this card. This is out of everything we've talked about so far. I think this is one of the few things that I look at and I go, "Oh, actually, I want this." Maevia and the Dad Esper and even Foset. I look at them and I obviously can recognize that they're good, and people pulling them are still going to have likely a positive experience with them. But I don't think I see them and go, "Oh my god, this is the piece I'm missing." But this card, at least I could say, like, yeah, I would use this. I can fit this in there.
I wish it had been like those luck and missile were flipped so that it was a 42% luck for gun. Um,
Yep.
at that point, it kind of maybe would have been a little bit redundant for bow and for greatsword because they both already have 42% luck cards.
Good point.
Um, but this is the first luck card for the gun group, and I feel like that one, that group out of anyone should be the one that is countering evasion the hardest.
Yep.
And we need a card like that. We need a 42% luck card to make that more achievable, easier. So I don't know. I still like it. Obviously a luck card is always at a premium, but I feel like to me this is less for like the mono gun team. But like you were saying with bow, this is either linking us into bow or linking us into greatsword, and kind of giving a little bit of accuracy along with some offense. It's pretty good. I like you said, the curation of the effects is not ideal for me.
No, and I think this is kind of interesting. At least the last couple of vision cards I just opened, the party effects are for, uh, well, this one's arena. Oh no, I'm sorry, this is also arena. I apologize. These are both for arena. Yeah, that they've gone with the arena picks as opposed to the Guild War effects, which honestly I'm okay with. I've actually appreciated the frequency at which they've been introducing competitive content to the dual mode. We've always had class match and quick pick, but now that you have like limited arena and some of these other things, that I've appreciated the quirkiness of the arena mode competitive stuff, that I'm starting to appreciate the attributes for it above and beyond what used to be just this like arena skip and repeat that it was for years.
I think so. I think when you like have the commander effects now, and like you said, you're adding in some different modes that we haven't had before, it does feel a little bit interesting, more interesting than it has in the past, definitely.
Yeah. But then that gets us to the newest release, which is Young O. Now, we don't know the details of this unit in terms of like stats or abilities or whatnot. It's really just like the Japanese translated high level stuff. It's a dual commander effect. And even right now, I don't think we're going to go in terribly in depth because you can only discern so much from this. But he is a water katana unit. No surprise on the job. A little bit surprised on the element. I don't know if I would have guessed water for O in particular. I think water is due for a unit, so I'm not terribly surprised they picked water as one of the newer units. But I didn't guess it was going to be him. But he does look to be a unit that has some blind on the limit break, so I'm thinking he can get to some decent luck evade potential. Maybe not, I wouldn't say top tier, but I wouldn't count that out either. Anything's possible. Katana certainly has the vision card support to run an evasive oriented character. And he does have a unit select 2 ability, which again kind of like some of these other units. I think that's all we really know about him. um
And we were noticing this. I mean, we like you said, limited details here, but this particular ability, this selects to range 5 with the range height 2, that that alone I think is very promising for this unit because the flexibility of that range is, you can't really understate how good that is. But immediately you think about the devout and katana connection with Exia. Exia is able to shred unit resistance, so it seems like that's kind of a natural pairing already. Wondering what kind of unit he's going to be. Is he a debuffer? Is he, a bruiser? What is he going to be? So we'll find out very soon. But I know a lot of people have been kind of anticipating this guy.
Absolutely so, and intrigued by the samurai sub job too, because I even think here you have the illusion buff. That I doubt that they've made that a major factor into his like buff rotation, but I know that typically can be something that a lot of like pseudo evade units have access to. So that's probably my personal prediction. I think they're skewing that direction with him.
It seems like it's at least going to be an option that he could be evasive because, yeah, Samurai does also have the Blade Soul passive, which has 12 evasion or something like that
Oh
too.
yeah, yep, good call, absolutely. And alongside him, they're getting we are getting a new dark Esper. It's Dark Leviathan, and it's a crossover between water and earth. Again, that synergy being a little bit of protection for water against the lightning units that might try to attack them. That you have an earth unit, and you already have Dark Siren connecting them. So this is the second overlap between that grouping. This is an AoE resistance card, and it's also a physical damage up. I think that's likely just a damage percent up, which pretty good, I think. If that's the case, I mean that's generally speaking good for all physical damage units. You don't have to worry about certain damaging attack types or penetrations like the Dark Ifrit, which is only defense pen. It's basically just a generic percent up, which I think is kind of nice. I'm curious to see the stats and the unit effects. That's typically one of the coolest things about these vision cards is seeing what they have for like unit bestowed, and they typically give some really good stats on it, whether it's luck or agility or whatever the case may be. That no doubt it'll likely be great for O, and I think a lot of people were confused or surprised that it came with O and not a different unit, but I like it. Whatever.
I think out of everything we've talked about kind of in this upcoming slate, this roadmap, even though I don't really know anything about this yet, this is the most compelling to me already because I feel like, the track record for Dark Espers, both the cards and the Espers themselves, has been pretty strong.
Yep.
I mean, there's been a couple that have been maybe not as impactful, but they by and large they have been very very strong. So especially when I see a new effect on there for the physical damage reduction flat, I'm very interested to see how much that's going to be. Is it 5%? Is it 10%? Because we haven't seen that on a vision card
Oh,
before.
and I read
So
this differently. I thought this was physical damage up, but you're reading this as physical damage reduction received. It certainly could be the way this is worded. Uh,
yeah,
I did not know the confirmation of what exactly is.
that's how I was reading it. Increased resistance to, I guess, both would. It's not written there, but
Right,
that's how
implicitly.
I read it.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
I'm thinking maybe this is a split between maybe it's like 10% area resistance and 10% physical damage, something like that. But you do also get the HP and accuracy on there too,
yep.
which is nice.
Either way, excited to see the details and excited to see the details of the Esper in particular, because the Espers have been very fun. I think most of the Dark Espers, even if the Vision cards have been a little bit of a swing and a miss, I know like Dark Ramu and Dark Ifrit, those Vision cards are kind of 50-50 by and large in utilization. But those Espers have been excellent. Dark Ifrit is a staple for evade units, and even Dark Ramu is still a great like magic oriented Esper for the man killer and the agility value he has and all that good stuff. So yeah, looking forward
And
to it.
if he's an evade unit, this could be another UR evasion Esper, which
Ooh,
I've actually been wanting for a minute.
I agree.
I've actually been wanting like a magical evasion Esper, but I'll take a Dark Leviathan evade Esper too.
Absolutely, well, for sure. No, I love it. But that does get us to the hot take section. I know it seems a little bit early for this, but we have the tier list after, and both of those do take up a fair amount of time. And honestly, we have a lot of really fun stuff to talk about. So I wanted to make sure we gave the time for it. And so the first hot take here is an interesting one. Uh, Gilgamesh, the new fire unit from Final Fantasy V, is the wall of the number one guild right now in global final boss. the hot take is that he's clearly number one thinks something about him, that he's a better pull than Mont or Xdeath out of all these this group of units that just ran. Is that a hot take, or do you think that that's true?
It's a little bit hot for me. I think that this is a unit that is we've said it many times. He's very versatile. You can kind of mold him to do what you want to do, but he can't really do everything at once. Um, so I think for certain players that this can be true. What this take says. I think for the majority of players, though, I think Mont and Exdeath are probably going to be better for them.
I would agree with that too. Yeah, I mean, I have Gilgamesh Max Reincarnate. I love that unit. He's not perfect. He can be built in a variety of different ways, which is why a top guild would appreciate a unit like that. It gives some meta versatility for them. But I also think that Mont, I think, is. We'll get to this soon, but I think Mont is an excellent pull and likely better overall for your average player. And we were hyping up Xdeath just for simply how easily he could slot into a team. Now, you could slot Gilgamesh into this mono fire team that we're seeing, but again, mono fire even has its downsides. I have no doubt that if they were running this for the next week, you would very clearly or very quickly start to see some offensive balance corrections to account for it, and this mono fire team would quickly show a lot more weaknesses than we see currently. So I think this is the kind of thing that they're just a little bit ahead of the curve. And to be fair, we're at a place too in Guild Wars, and we're going to talk about this in JP next, I think, or the second, third hot take. The number one guild has there's not a lot of parity, or yeah, there's not a lot of parity in the top 10 to threaten how good the number one guild is at the moment for what they do for like daily switches, reincarnation levels, pulling requirements, things of that nature. So I'll be honest, they could likely make any unit work by the nature that they have 30 people that are very in tune to adjusting. So this is one of those times that I think if someone just very casually looked at the stats of the top 10, they might get a mistaken takeaway of like a unit valuation. When the reality is that this is a guild that's using their resources properly in the same direction and with force and like intention, and that's why you're seeing the results, not necessarily because of the inherent value of the unit themselves.
Yeah. I mean, I think he's kind of like I would say like a power gamers like unit, and that kind of like goes into the whole versatility argument, and also just there is some benefit sometimes to playing something that's off meta where I think
Correct.
Gilgamesh has been, I'm sorry, Xdeath has been hyped to all hell, and people were ready for him day one. They've been watching players over in JP use him. They've been looking at his kit, and teams are kind of good to go. We're used to having Shrek kind of all over the place in the meta, so people are already kind of used to dealing with magic teams or magic heavy teams with counter tanks like Dario and other units. So a heavy physical team coming in like the mono fire team does subvert the meta a little bit, and teams aren't necessarily going to be ready for that.
Agreed. And we even talked about this last week. We've seen a pretty big uptick in ice overall. Like we even had a couple mono ice walls run last Guild War, and that was one of our hot takes. Was mono ice the strongest mono element? And being as popular as it is, this is obviously a natural kind of dead defense against that ice. In particular, when you think of the roadmap we were just talking about with Maevia, that she seemed to be a relatively good pull, and the fact that you have some espers like Dad Bomb that are clearly incentivizing the ice play. This is almost like getting ahead of the curve. And fortunately, we have that window of insight that JP doesn't. That you could kind of get ready for what the game balance is trying to bring by going this direction.
Yep.
No, I like it. The second hot take here, and this is again another, we'll say like Guild War oriented take. This is a very topical one because this is a guild that we are playing today. Those of you may or may not know Genova in the top 10. They are famously a evade only guild, and they ride or die by that. They ran Yuffie for ages in Eldyra, and they were running those units even as recent as like 2-3 months ago. That was just the sword that they were dying on. But with the new evade units, they have transitioned to like a Riku and Venero. I wouldn't necessarily call it a wall because it's not all 30, but it's like 20 plus of the Riku, and you have and even the 10 people not playing perfect evade, clearly playing in that direction. And let me just flash this for you on the screen right now. Genova has risen to rank 6 at the moment. They're technically on like a what 5-1 in their last 6 matches. They beat Final Boss, who's the number one ranked guild. I know it's crazy. We were shocked, and they drew Chocobos, who's the number two guild, using this evade style, and clearly it's on an absolute tear. The end is technically ranked number 4, so they're just tearing through the top end with this evade wall. Not even, I won't say out of nowhere, because we clearly saw it coming. um, but the fact that they have the results here now, does this change the conversation around evade? Is evade suddenly the meta? Is evade top tier? Like, is this the results that's proving it? Is this a hot take, or is that true?
I mean, I think that Evade is among the top tier. It is one of the best teams that you can run right now. But like any other team, it has flaws and it has weaknesses if you're prepared for it. So it is kind of part of that rock, paper, scissors, PvP, and I think that part of the reason why it's been doing so well, I think, is particularly in the last week, is that they have gradually been getting stronger here over the last month or so. And nobody had faced them in a couple weeks because we just had limited. So I think that they finished off a number of their teams, and they had a number of Rikus for a while, but they started completing that team with a bunch of Veneras here over the past few weeks. And I think we're starting to see the culmination of them maybe dropping some of their weaker teams and having a more competitive, 1 through 25 or whatever it is that they have. So, um, yeah, we're struggling a bit ourselves with them tonight. We may be losing as well, so that's tough. But hats off to them. They've like you said, they're ride or die with this team and kind of showing what it's capable of.
Definitely. Yeah, no, I mean, there's a reason why in our last tier list we had Riku in our S tier and people were questioning it. And it's just one of those things that by the nature of the numbers, you either prepare for it or you don't, and you'll either win or lose because of it. It's not one of those things where there's you send two teams at it and maybe like it just gets messy and one team barely squeaks out. You very rarely like barely lose to this team. You'll either like stomp them or they'll stomp you. Just by the nature of like the haste online and the chaining capabilities, the evasion, the null sure hits. There's this is absolutely a meta potential team. One of the big things though is that you need an element of surprise to it, as you mentioned. I think if everyone in the top 10 was running evasion, it would not be nearly as good. But when you have these one-offs where you kind of take your foot off the pedal for a second, and we might sound crazy sometimes when we always talk about accuracy. We emphasize it all the time. And the reason is for this instance that like you have to prepare for the time where you might get it. Because if you're not prepared, you literally just lose. Like there's just no counterplay. They just dodge your hits and you just
Yeah.
lose. And so it's just one of those things that you sleep for a little while, or maybe you underrate them as a top guild. Maybe you say, they're whatever, it's Genova. But no doubt this is a top potential meta team. And we'll probably talk about that more in the tier list, too. Okay, this is another good one here. This one's submitted by Brad. And this is actually really good news. This blends a lot of topics into one. Um, the number two guild in JP has disbanded. Now, again, some insight for you guys. On the JP side of things, the rank one guild is basically like a monopoly. Like they are the kings of Guild War. They have a uh, what 700 point lead over the second place team. Absolutely unheard of. But the second place team was really one of the few that could challenge them to any kind of degree. But they recently disbanded. And although it might seem small for one guild to disband, this hot take's asking that this is a significant threat to the JP financial health due to even less impetus to spend for top end competition. Is this a hot take, or do you think that's true? Is this a hot take that one guild is a significant threat, or is that true?
I don't. That's a little bit hot for me because I mean I think that most of these players are just going to, a lot of times when guilds break up, it's because the leadership has faltered or wants to retire themselves, and none of the other people want to pick up that mantle, so they just end up going and filtering off to other guilds. So I'm sure that the majority of these 30 players that left this guild have already found themselves in other guilds, other top guilds, and and will continue to spend, maybe not on the same level, but similar levels. And at the end of the day, it's just 30 people, even if they are spending $400 a month, 400 times 30 is what, like 10 grand or
Right.
12 grand or whatever. Um, when you're talking about over 1 million a month for the JP side, it's a little bit of money, but it's not nearly the whole pie there. So
I,
I disagree with this take.
I agree with you. I would disagree with this take also, unless there's some actual reason that we're not seeing why they disbanded. If it's on unhappiness with the game, if it's something with the top end competition where the game balance is screwed up and they're not happy, that's different. If it's to your point, guild leader wanted to retire, or maybe they just drama in the guild, they wanted to go their separate ways. This is likely a drop in the bucket, and you get guilds that always replace it. That's happened to global before. We've had plenty of guilds disband, and new ones just rise up and they take their place, and the overall spend tends to be fine. It's only when you really see like mass exoduses in the top 10, where we did see that in global for a little while. I think through the Sephiroth Gilgamesh meta might have been the most outflow that I've seen, even more in the top end than Road to Worldwide and some of those others. That to me is when it starts getting worrisome, where you see that outflow at the top end of the game, because then you not only lose those spenders per se, but to the heart of this question, uh, when you have less competition, there's less of a drive to spend. If everyone's playing casual and like, whatever, you don't really need to like sweat for every new unit or new vision card. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, that it can definitely have an impact over time if it's like a domino effect and, other guilds start folding and people start retiring en masse. But I think that, a lot of the money in this game is made from people who are just very casual and just spend on the big collabs or just pop in and say, oh, I want to buy that. When you have enough of those people in the pool, then, it adds up.
absolutely so, totally. And then for the next hot take, this is a great one. Um, it's time for another support that can replace Lucille or Summer Resnick. This is a hot take, or is this true?
Mm, I'm kind of done with the support era personally. You know, it's very frustrating when you just have this little like the cockroach unit sitting in the back, and you're just I call it the garbage time where you've clearly beat the team, but the unit's just sitting there healing themselves and they're so far in the back that you end up burning all these buffs just to get to them. So personally, I'm kind of just over like the support for a while, but um if it's an interesting take on support rather than just like a healing style support, I could get behind that.
I would agree with you. I think it's a hot take. I think it's not time for another support to like Lucille or Summer Resnick. I'm totally fine with how they get created with some of the role compression. If you wanted to create a unit that was support by the fact of like a Faris style AoE heal, but they clearly were like a DPS in the AI. I don't think you'd consider that a support though. Like we don't consider Faris a support; we consider a damage dealer. So unless they really flip the script to do something completely brand new and unique, yeah, I don't think a new support would really add any value. Nor do I think that they would necessarily replace them, because obviously they bring different kinds of utility. You would need the support to bring the right kind of utility. Right now you have White Lotus Fina. I still am a champion for Lena as a support, but they clearly do not do anything remotely close to these two units. So even if you had a new support released, it doesn't guarantee that they can bring more to the table than what these two do. And so, yeah, unless it was something really cool and unique and interesting, I'm all set too. I think it's time
Yeah,
for more of the sequential role compression stuff.
I agree.
Yep. And just to address to Swan mentioned that Nickel is a support oriented unit. Disagree. We always categorize support based on AI. That if they have the opportunity with an enemy in range to either heal or do damage, if they opt to heal, they're a support. If they opt to do damage, that's a damage dealer. And so I think that's like one of the most basic ways you can break down whether someone's you can be supportive. That's kind of like the old argument of like, what's a tank? Well, you have people that are tanky. That's an adjective, but a tank is someone with hate. You if you don't have hate, you're not a tank. You have to like you, but you can be tanky. same idea. You can be supportive, but you're not a support unless you
I
haven't.
agree with that.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, he's a supportive unit. Like he's a debuffer and he has some role compression, but I wouldn't call him a support unit.
No, no, no. Perfect. All right, another good hot take. The next one we have here. Mont is overrated by JP. We were looking at meta on JP last week. We were looking at stars of what they were getting, and it does look like over the past like 10 or 5 6 days. Actually, I'm not going to filter all this. I'm going to waste time doing that for you guys. The long and short of what we seem to have discovered is that they started out pretty strong, but have seemingly kind of tapered off. Maybe there's some map effects on Mont's release that were kind of propping up artificially, but we also have not really seen him take off per se in global the way that maybe a brand new meta unit does. I'm just setting the table here. Is Mont overrated by JP? Is this a hot take, or do you think this is true?
It's a little bit hot for me. I think that he is an excellent unit. He's our first tank of the next generation. And so he's enabling a different playstyle, one that we haven't. I mean, we've had it with Agrius and Thancred a little bit, but they're not on the same. They're not of the same caliber as Mont, in my opinion. From like the pure brick wall perspective, there's no other unit like him in the game. Um, So, yeah, I think he can be pretty oppressive, especially if we start flipping into a more physical heavy meta and the physical units start dominating. He's going to be an essential tool to have. And I think, personally, I think that he's S caliber for that reason, even if he doesn't necessarily show it right now. We do have to consider, too, that his team isn't fully there yet. We don't have his vision card. And some of the new pieces that they've been putting as like overlap units for him aren't in the picture yet. So um, there's yeah, more to come for that unit for sure.
I agree. And I think this is a hot take. I do not think he's overrated by JP. I think he's a stellar unit that fits into, again, we're just hyping him up, fits into a lot of great teams. He clearly has a couple different ones that he can be a cornerstone for. I do think, obviously, per usual, much of it is map dependent. That always is the case for every unit when we have this discussion. And it's easy to be a prisoner of the moment sometimes when you look at the Guild War map that's current. Like right now, we've got some Mont teams in the fray that like look unbeatable in some of our testing. Like there isn't a team that can beat it. And that could be just purely map related, not necessarily balance related. But I do agree that he's not overrated by JP. I think he's perfectly rated. I wouldn't say over nor under. He is clearly getting some investment from the developers in terms of enabling him more. And I think the partners that he can pair with have proven that they can play either missile or evade or monolight. Monolight is absolutely crushing it, and I don't think that's going to slow down anytime soon either. Yeah, that's my. I agree with you.
I think just to add on to this, it's a little bit similar of a conversation we had to one of our hot takes last week where we said, um, I think we said who was going to be the better pull. Was it X Death or Mont? And I
Yes,
think we kind of landed on X Death just because despite how good Mont is, I think that you can still make the argument that you can wait on him just because we do know we have some anniversary stuff coming up in a couple of months. And there's a good chance that we're going to be able to get him and have the player base catch up at, a fraction of the cost. That in addition to, X Death, has a very compelling TMR, a very compelling
commander. In fact,
commander effect. So, that's, I think, a different argument. I don't think that the unit himself, though, is overrated.
no, totally with you on that. And the last one here, this is the one that made us late to podcast by a couple minutes. This is a fun one. Because O has this on his Select 2. He generates regen. We've seen this with X Death. He on buff generates regen. It's his commander ability as well. Is regen overrated? It's seemingly popping up in a lot of places. Agrius also has it. I'll. Do you want to take this? Or, yeah. How do you want to? Hot take or no?
I don't personally. There have been times where I think it has been overrated, but as we've gotten into the next generation and the HP pools have really ballooned into pretty crazy levels, especially on the top tier bruisers and tanks, I don't think that it's overrated because like on Mont, we were just talking about, I've had him, if I have his healing power passive equipped, I can have him ticking over 3,000 per tick, which is pretty substantial, considering he can take like, triple digit damage. Um, so yeah, I don't think it's overrated.
This is one I think it's kind of is, but I don't think it's bad. If a unit has regen, that's clearly all form of self survivability. And to your point, if you have regen for 3 ticks and if you're below max health, that's the other thing. You need to make sure that you're below max health to actually get the benefit of regen. If you're full health, it's worthless at that point. But if you were to theoretically get like 3 turns of it, then you're talking 6 to 8,000 healing. That to me is roughly equivalent mathematically to like a heal back effect, where if you're below a certain health pool, you regenerate like 40 to 50% of your health. And if you figure an average unit's at like 14,000 HP, that's like 7k healing. It's basically the same amount as the regen from like a numbers perspective. So to that effect, it's hard for me to say that regen's worthless or bad, because clearly in the broad scheme of like the total health pool, it's still a significant contributor. I just have yet to really see regen see the tangible impact of it actually winning me a fight or being like a meaningful form of self survivability. Whereas some of those heal backs I've found, like you heal that back and you're allowed to take 2 more hits because of it. But regen is so small and incremental over time that I found that a lot of times within War of the Visions, it's typically an onslaught of attacks all at once, and the regen is just too small in the scheme of how much damage you're taking in succession with each other, as opposed to a heal back where you might take 1 hit, heal back 50% of your health, and now you can take 3 more hits. That won't, or 2, you know what I mean? That won't happen with regen though. You won't take 1 hit, you'll take those next 2 hits and die. And that's great that you got the regen beforehand. So it's probably not like as impactful, but I can't say it's bad. Yeah, I don't know if that came off right. Yeah.
I think the situations where it's felt best to me have been on some of the more recent examples, like Agrius and like Mont in particular. If you have the X Death commander ability on him, he feels way different of a unit, I think, because of that regen that he gets at 70%.
Yep. No,
And
totally.
both of those units already have heal backs in addition to that, which I think makes it
Exactly.
feel even more oppressive sometimes.
Couldn't agree more. Totally. But yeah. But I know there's some things where you look at, I see like a honeycomb, like, oh, honeycomb, excellent value. Or I see a barrier. Like that to me, like I can pretty much tell you like the floor or like the average return on like how good it is. But regen to me, I don't think you get that same like bang for your buck. Like, oh, thank God this unit has regen. They'd be unplayable if they didn't. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah. But all right, cool. That's essentially everything for our hot takes, though, which brings us to the tier list. I know we're coming up on the hour here, so hopefully we can be a little more efficient with our time compared to how we normally are with these tier lists. 1 second here. So, setting the table for everybody once again. Last tier list we did was the end of the year tier list on December 30th, and we wanted to make sure we did that before the year ended. It was kind of in response to an Ultimate tier list that came out that we kind of disagreed with from a global perspective. And enough units have come out, enough time has passed, and enough has shaken out that we thought it's about time to reevaluate our tier list. And so I'm going to scroll down here to the next one. And the way we've kind of set this up, per usual, we have our units here on the left that are brand new, which we're going to place. We have units that were taken off the tier list and got upgrades, see if they're worth coming back on. And then there's some units that these sideways arrows are units that got upgrades. Were they ones that maybe changed where they fit? And the up and down arrows are really a reflection of like the meta evolving. Do these units get better or worse in how the game is kind of shaping out to be? I think we typically approach this by kind of going through the arrows first. Do you want to do that too? Same thing here, and just kind of work our way up from D to S?
Sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
let's do that.
So we have a couple units here that we think are in danger of falling out. And again, we should try to keep the tempo on this. But I with Vega and Summer Jaden look to be potential ones to fall off our D tier. I don't disagree with this if you wanted to make this move. It's yeah.
I thought it was at least like debatable because Vega in particular, I think needs to go
I agree with you.
because he has just, even when he was new, he just hasn't done anything. The upgrades haven't been good.
Yep.
I think that maybe it's time for potentially time for Jaden as well, because I don't know if his upgrades really did enough for him. And now is like the time of gun, and I haven't really seen him anywhere.
No, just statistically too inferior in my opinion. He's too flimsy. He's arena cope at best when you talk about like having some fun in arena. I can't see this unit played in like objective gameplay, particularly for its cost. For a different
Yeah.
cost maybe, but yeah, no. I
I mean,
agree.
what I had like some copium for him, I'd like to counter Sottily Exia, but even my Sottily one shot
It's not even close. It's
one shot him.
crazy. Exactly.
So like, yeah,
Yeah.
he's gotta go.
The same with
And
Addison. Is she worth falling off entirely, or
I still really like her for just that unique buff that she has that literally nobody else can do. But other than that's just like a one trick pony. She doesn't really have much else to offer these days. So I think it's at least maybe. I don't know. What do you think?
I'm I don't know. I don't know. I really don't. I don't want to drop her quite yet because I think she can troll some teams and you can still win with her. But at the same time, you just don't see her being played. It's all in your head at this point. So I would see the case being made for her to fall off, but I don't want to be the one to do it. So I'll let you be the
I think
jury.
that she should like when we decide to take Sephiroth and Vivi off, and maybe some of these other
Yeah,
units that haven't gotten upgrades. Maybe it's time for her because she's kind of in that same era.
I like that. I like that. Yeah, no, and again, the thing about Addison, it's literally not about damage at this point. It's purely her buffs. The fact that she can give two units heal backs and null sure hit. There's a fair amount of units that, you just don't want to get guaranteed hit. That's as simple as that. And I was playing with that for a while with like Cypher and Sunil. I was giving them null sure hit, and they were just dominating people in like arena for just not being able to
Yeah,
get hit.
you almost like consider just like a support unit at that point,
Exactly.
and that's
Exactly.
about it.
Yeah. Um, I guess from here we could just kind of work our way up in terms of going from D tier. These units that have gotten upgrades, Faris got a great upgrade. I'm okay moving Faris to C. I think those are worthy upgrades.
I think C is good for her. I think potentially even make a case for B, but it's just not. I don't think that the meta conditions are great for her right now because she's not all that stout against magic damage. She's maybe a B for me though.
I, I could see the case. I've played with her only a small handful of times. I was not impressed. And the few arena teams I saw people using her in arena were free points for me when I see
Yeah,
them. So like off that alone, I've not seen anything that has made me go, oh wow, like let me rethink this. As like a great example is Lilith, where you did a couple fights, and I remember watching you use Lilith, and I was like, wow, I didn't know the unit was capable of that. I have not seen that with Faris post upgrades.
yeah.
Which brings us to Glassy, Flagbearer Glaciella. Um, I I'll kick this one off. I would comfortably and happily I would put her back up in C for the pure perspective of Hypervade. You ran a really great team of her and Gilgamesh and Wind Veritas that absolutely ruffle stomped, no diffed the Evade girls like a map or two ago, and I was very surprised with how well she did it. Enough so that I think the meta condition kind of props her up here.
I agree with that. Like she's kind of a niche unit, but she can do like fairly well in that matchup because she has stun resistance. That was one of the reasons why we liked her back in like the VV meta.
Right.
Um, and she's got good debuff weakening, so like even if Venera tries to shred her, she can kind of combat that a little bit and protect some of that area resistance. She's definitely can, if the chains start to add up, she'll go down quickly. But, aside from that, I think, the damage is there. She's got the courage removal. Um, so yeah, I think C is good for her.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not perfect, but when I look at the other units in this group, they're not perfect either, but they have their times where they can provide value, and I think she does the same.
Yeah, for her age, I think that's high praise for her, I would say.
Agreed. Bart's is a tough one. I don't have a strong case for him to be in C personally. I think he got good upgrades. I don't know if they're good enough upgrades to move an entire tier up. They're certainly new gen enough that you could make the case. Just unfortunately, I see when I saw Faris's upgrades, I was like, wow, they like fixed this unit and like brought her up in a way that can make her more usable. I saw Bart's as more just some like tinkering with the numbers. The accuracy percent certainly appreciated. The extra area pen definitely appreciated. The heal back, obviously a component of it, but I don't have a strong opinion. I'm not keeping him in D, but I'm not saying we should move him either.
For me, I think that the upgrades probably make him better at this point than. I mean, he's definitely, I would say, objectively better than Glaciella.
Actually, yeah, wait a minute.
He's
When I look at my D units, he's way better than the D units. Let's be real.
yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, he's probably better than A2 and Bradley as well. So
yeah,
yeah, he's got to be C.
yeah. I'm sorry. I take all that back. Yeah, yeah.
I agree though. It hasn't felt like he's like gotten as huge of a bump as I would have wanted though.
Yeah. Oberon, I think we just keep here. He's borderline falling off even.
I think
Next tier list, he
he
might fall off.
very underwhelming. I think he holds his place.
Yeah.
So
Nope. Totally. We'll keep going on here. Uldoa, brand new vision card to help support her, and XF coming into the fray. Kind of a nice meta condition for her. Does she move up or down for it? We've played with a couple teams where she looked pretty decent. With the vision card upgrade, and obviously having XF and Shreka make anyone look kind of decent. I
the
don't know.
Ents had like a pretty nice wall or fence with her as well that kind of gave
They
us a little
did.
bit of trouble and some other guilds a little bit of trouble.
They did. I'm willing to bump her up. I don't think it's a strong case, because I still see her get exposed pretty hard. But no, maybe keep her. Meta condition wise,
I think she stays for me because I think
yeah,
that the one of the main reasons that it works is because of the pick rate of Shrek still being, between 45 to 60%, and she is very good against Shrek. Like she's got huge unit resistance and pretty nice magic resistance and just the overall bulkiness. Um, so I think C until she gets some upgrades, then she could probably move into B.
agreed. Helena the Black Rose, the old fashioned light unit. Me personally, I think she stays. Great upgrades,
Stays.
stays, but nothing
Yeah,
breaking
she didn't
ground.
get really anything that's game breaking. Maybe when she gets a limit burst upgrade, maybe that'll be more compelling.
Astrius did get some upgrades. I still think he's in C also. I don't think it did anything. He's a better character, but not to the level of the B units, in my opinion.
Yeah, he should stay.
The Bolt Veritas got their, was it limit break? No, meta condition. This is meta condition. I'm sorry. We had some fun success with Bolt Veritas alongside Gilgamesh. The idea being that she can guarantee hit from range before some of these null shirts come online, and Gilgamesh just finishes the job. I think she still stays in C though, even with some of the attention to bow on the vision cards. This is a unit that's still very like boom or bust, and those iterations we made her work, it was very clearly like a synergy with Gilgamesh. I don't think it was like the strength of the unit in particular. I wouldn't mind moving her up because the game is clearly balancing for it, but I don't know. I guess I think I need to see more before I guess it.
Mm,
I don't feel
I
strongly
think
about
what
this
what
though.
I think what we were able to do with her puts her like a league above some of these units here in C for me.
I'm convinced.
Like when I'm looking at like Soul and like
Yeah,
Lucio, like I can't even use them like with Gilgamesh and like
you're
being a
right.
top tier team,
You're right.
but I could with Bolt Veritas. So I think that's B caliber.
I like it. Ralph got MA3. It's unfortunately, it is Guild War effect. It's the Magic Honeycomb. A couple other things she got too. There's enough to
Mhm.
bump her up. I don't think so. I think she's right in that tier of Summer Glassy and Oldoa. I feel like that's a pretty good like apples to apples comparison. She's still really strong for who she is. I don't know if it's B tier quite yet though.
No.
Yeah.
See, I think yeah, we talked about her getting the MA3, which should be, will, it was supposed to be last week, but got pushed to this week.
Correct. Thank you.
Um, yeah, she holds her spot. Yeah, I don't see her going up.
No, and I agree with Eld holding his spot too. I think his incoming upgrades are good ones. I don't think they're ones that really elevate him through the roof. Um, it just keeps him where he should be.
Yeah, I think I need to see like an LB upgrade for him
Yes.
to potentially ascend.
Yep.
But I mean, Spear has looked a lot better as of late, especially with Gilgamesh coming in. Um, but yeah, I think he holds his spot there.
And then Water Veritas, I think, got the or is about to get the mastery upgrade, which I don't remember off the top of my head, but I remember being fine. This unit though, I'm still comfortable in C. I don't think it did much for me to. Did that is that live already? I can't even remember, to be honest.
Yeah, why don't we just take a look at it real quick? Because I can't remember what the
No, it's not
he
live
doesn't have
yet.
it yet. I think we're getting it very soon.
That's what it was. She's getting AOE pen of 20, the unit res of 10, and then the upgrade to the buff is 40 magic res pen.
And it increases her HP when she raises.
Yep. Yep. Um, maybe back in B? No, I think maybe too early. We
It's
should see it before. I think
yeah. I think that it has potential to move into B. I think it's a pretty significant upgrade for her, especially with the new vision card that has like some special benefits for her. But yeah, I just haven't seen the results, and um, water has been kind of haven't hasn't been played as much as of late either. So
yep.
I think she stays.
Totally. Moving up to B here. Pain has been used more and more. Obviously, with X Death, a little more dark emphasis that people are opening the door to like maybe using her a little more. Mont coming here as a great sword team. We have a member in our guild, Kells, who's a great longtime vet, has been using her with excellent success. Enough so that it's made me want to play the unit. I don't know if it's enough for A. It's close though. I don't know if Mont changes that conversation and if Dark Veritas changes that conversation. I think it technically does. Like they elevate her by the fact of her going in that party. I don't necessarily know if it's her in particular, but then again, oftentimes these characters are where they are because of the meta conditions, and you can't deny that Mont and Dark Veritas getting a reincarnation soon might be part of that. I could go either way.
She has potential that she could move into A. Like we were talking earlier about like units who can debuff unit res penetration of the opponent. She's actually another one that's able to do that.
Good call.
And actually I like that combo with Maevia and her too because they can kind of double down on the unit res penetration debuffs. I don't know if it's been compelling enough for me quite yet that I would want to push her into A, but I think the potential is there, like with some of these pieces coming online,
I
like
agree.
Xdeath, like Mont, like Mavia.
I'm
Um,
gonna put her right there. Just these are
yeah,
not in any particular order, but subconsciously we see a unit on the left is usually a good sign. Um, for Dark Veritas, I think he stays for now. I think we need to see the max reincarnation first, but this unit is on the cusp
yeah.
of doing great things.
I've tried to take him for a spin a couple times since he got his 140, and he needs the extra stats to compete. The kid I think is pretty solid. That I think the kid is probably borderline A caliber.
Yep.
Um, I feel like he feels like he could compete with a lot of those units that we have in A. But yeah, he just needs the re-ink to come online and the limit burst and some of the other goodies. So
Absolutely.
he stays.
Yep. Brings us to Ramza. What up or down based on meta conditions? Uh,
I think he goes down
I think so
personally.
too. I know when we last did this, we had Grand Arena fresh in our mind, the 5v5, and he had a lot of really great applications there. I think in terms of like general Guild War, now that the game is kind of rebalanced itself, still very valuable buff and a great unit overall. But I don't think he's maintained the same relative holding power that he did a couple months ago.
Yeah, and there hasn't been like any like significant warrior unit coming in either to kind of prop him up, and like you know make more use for him. So I, yeah, I think C is a good spot.
Yeah. And then Light Vertus got their limit break and their weapon. We've played with them for a fair bit. We had them in the barracks the whole time. We had high hopes. I still think this is likely probably one of the more impactful Veritas units in terms of like what I've actually seen in battle. I don't know if it's enough for A in myself. I think they're better than the other Veritas units, but I've yet to actually had like proof in my hand to be like this unit's as good as the unit in A units. She's usually the one that drops in a lot of the team building, but Very, very close for me. Like really borderline.
I was gonna make a case for A for her personally,
And I can be sold. If you want to sell it, I'll buy it. Like,
like purely just because of the current like meta condition against like the Magic teams. Like she is pretty strong there. Um, and I think that the LB animation is absolutely S tier.
I agree with
so
that.
so I got to give some bonus points for that LB animation because it's if you haven't if, for folks in the chat if you haven't watched the LB animation, go check it out. It's one of the best they've ever done.
I agree.
Um, I don't know if she's going to stay in A very long for me, but I think for like right now, like she feels really competitive. Um, in because it's like a renaissance for light right now too.
Absolutely. No, that's why it was close enough, and I have seen the results for it that I absolutely would entertain that grade, and I think it's compelling, even if it's on the lower end of it for me. I would
She has
absolutely
like
round up.
she has some major flaws. Like her accuracy is a huge pain point, and physical damage is a huge pain point for her. So like Mont coming in like really I think helps propel her quite a bit.
Good point too. Yep. Dario was we talked about this last week, an excellent meta game changer for us in the top 10, where he was very competitive against anti evade. He was kind of the secret sauce against the Sottily teams for what he could do against them. Even just generally speaking, versus Sephiroth and Shreka, he fared okay. I don't think it was a slam dunk actually off the top of my head, but it was fine. But it was very widely applicable. Maybe not as much of a need for that team as there was a month ago. But I don't know if it's enough for me to move him down to B. I don't think the game is changing enough quite yet where he's lost a leg on what he can do. I think if you use that team today, you'd still get the results you were used to seeing. So I think he's fine in A.
He's trending downwards for me,
I agree.
but I don't think he's I think he's still competing there.
Totally agree.
Especially against like Sephiroth, I mean against Shrek in Next Death.
Exactly. Exactly. Thunder God Sid, who, really great upgrade. A lot of people have had some fun with him. I think he unfortunately has to go down to B. The meta condition has not changed enough. Earth is still strong enough. He still has the same weaknesses overall, and I still have yet. I've seen him like really pop some people in the mouth with his damage, but there are other times where I also alternatively see him just die too fast for a unit that should be in an A tier. You look at the other comparables and still very solid upgrades. And again, people in B are excellent role players. He's still very valuable in the Sword Red Mage group. I still think if you're ranking lightning units, he's still like among the top of the lightning units, but I just don't think from like a meta perspective, he's got that same strength as he did 2 to 3 months ago.
Absolutely agreed. Yeah, he needs to go down.
Yep. And the commander, the Perrine unit, this unit I think is a B unit. I don't want to overcorrect here too harshly because this unit is still an excellent anti-earth unit. Like she's literally the Sottily counter, and I still think she's one of the better like accuracy units that you could probably like theorycraft and bring to the table, particularly with what Fist has for vision card overlap. Cost wise, certainly gives her a benefit of the doubt when you talk about cost limited content. Yeah, I think B's okay for her. Great commander though, excellent commander ability.
Yeah, I think we gave her bonus points last time specifically because of the commander ability. Like we thought she was a B unit even last time. And thinking about it like since then, we probably shouldn't juxtapose like commander capabilities with unit capabilities here.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we can put it as like a footnote, but maybe not boost them like a tier because of it. I don't know if you feel the same way.
I do feel the same, and even last time though, I felt comfortable with A because of how good she was versus Sottily, and with Riku being the other meta unit, there was
Yeah.
an Ash and Mont being in our AT. There was enough really powerful Earth that this girl could like single handedly counter entire Earth teams. Not all wind, most of wind units can do that, but not all wind units can do that. And I genuinely thought she deserved to hang out here, but game didn't go that direction.
Yeah. B, I think B is a good spot.
Yeah. Lucille, interesting one here where Summer Resnick has still proven to be like the overall superior support, but Lucille has still shown very powerful support unit with the haste capabilities. Again, always map dependent, always team dependent. It's fallen off a little bit some of the earlier team iterations where she was really oppressive. Notably, the Sodali Exia team, Lucille was really like the battery that gave that team a lot of juice. We're still kind of seeing it now with the Evade team. She's, I think, probably the like still most popular other unit, and even on JP, they clearly believe in her. Again, we talked about this. It might be just that they don't have Summer Resnick, and so they're using Lucille instead. But I don't know if I'm ready to like drop her in A, but it's damn close. There's a couple things that I just genuinely don't like about her. Still, I don't like, relatively speaking, she doesn't have the full life. I know when a unit dies, I'm like, well, that sucks. The fight's over. Um, the haste does either wear off on this kind of Guild War map or easily dispel depending upon the team you're using it with. Water isn't strong enough that the water percent buff is like amazing for me. And a lot of these units at the moment have re-raise baked in. And so I know there's a lot of times where I'm even turning off that limit break because I just don't need the re-raise, which is kind of like a pretty significant part of her power. But I don't know if it's enough to drop it out of S. She's obviously still like a universally exceptional unit.
I don't know if it's enough for me to drop her down either, but I also think she's trending downwards as well.
Yep.
I think she's saved, I think, by the Evade Girls team because that is one of the more popular, you know, um, variations of that team. So she still is being played, you know, within the top ends of the game. So I think she stays for now.
I agree. And then Gilgamesh. Amazing unit. It has been for quite some time, but obviously we're seeing a fair amount of fire still. We're seeing the Shreka Gilgamesh duo kind of fall off a little bit here now as of late. We're seeing more counterplay to the follow up attacks in general. Um, I do think it could be the time for this unit to drop down to A. I don't know if he's in that S the way he was a month ago, but I don't feel terribly strongly. He's again super borderline for me.
We kind of were thinking about dropping him down for I think a couple cycles now, but then like the Valeria team kind of had us kind of give him some bonus points for a while. That team has faded away, and now I think with Gilgamesh coming into the other Gilgamesh from 5 coming into the picture, X Death also does pretty well against him. We know that Shrek can one shot him,
Yep.
and although he can do it to it's kind of they can both one shot each other. Um, and with the rise of like Greatsword and like all the wide res they have access to, even that team is pretty strong against him as well. I think it's time. Yeah.
Yeah.
A for Gilgamesh.
Good one in chat here. I think I want because now we've addressed all the arrows real quickly. Crimson Wizard per BP in being an A tier seems like a stretch. He seems like a B tier unit only in fire comps situationally. We've had great success in the glove teams with him. I agree. Mono fire is like a one iteration that maybe there's some handicaps, but even then, I was running a mono fire team because again the Shreka Gilgamesh team, Crimson Wizard does exceptional against. The fact that Gilgamesh is falling here, Ice Gilgamesh, obviously kind of hurts Crimson Wizard as well. I don't think it's enough to drop him to B yet, though. He still can pop, and that glove team still has shown that it's got some potency to it. Any thoughts on Crimson Wizard in particular?
I think like a lot of people just don't see this guy enough or don't have the unit, so they don't really know how good he can be like in like a top setup.
Totally.
Um, he's never going to be an S unit, but we've said many times he can beat a lot of the units in S.
Correct.
Um, it's getting a little bit less now though because Sephiroth and Gilgamesh have fallen down to A, but he still does very well against Shrek. He does okay against Sadali, not great. So he could be trending down a little bit, but like with more ice coming into the meta, that could have him rise too. So I don't think it's time for him to move down yet though.
No, totally. And then this last thing here before we add some of these units, I did want to make a quick vote for another potential unit here. I don't know if Exia is S tier at the moment. I know that's crazy.
Oh, I hard disagree with that.
No, that's fine. I just wanted to talk about it. I've not seen her used. It's really a utilization rate thing, not necessarily a character intrinsic part of her. A lot of what formerly kept her in S was this like quicken capability with Sottily. We're not really seeing that at the moment. Although there's a lot of fire floating around in some respects, her in particular has lost the anti-Sephiroth identity that really like propelled her early on. That now we have other things that can beat Sephiroth, and so as I see like more things come into the fold, and even like her survivability, there's some fights that you can clearly see like the Dispel Seal is amazing, and there are other fights where she's like just kind of one of the first to die. Even in places where you're like, oh, that sucks, like it shouldn't happen. Enough so that it's made me question whether she is still holding her spot here. I think the character is still deserved, but it's one of those things that I'm noticing the play rate drop a little bit.
Yeah, no doubt that the play rate has gone down, and Sotiles, for that matter, also gone
Correct.
down. But when that wall comes out, it still is very, very strong. And
Chocobos just ran it the other day. That's that number
yeah,
2 ranked guild. That's their jam. Yep.
and even before limited, some guilds were popping it out and surprising people with how good it can be. The current map is not the greatest for it. It's a very like long map. It's a missile favored map, and the missile team was kind of built to counter them too. Unit was kind of built to counter them, and when she has the space to do it, she can do it pretty well. Um,
Nope.
I still like Exia, like just for the pure like accuracy. Like she can do a number on Riku. Like her accuracy can get up there if she's built for it. Venera is definitely a problem for her, but I've lost to the Sodali Exia team many times with my maxed evasion team. Like if it's built correctly, it can win against that team with no losses.
Yep.
Um, yeah, I think she stays for me.
Nope. That's fine. I know we talked about every character in S a little bit up to this point, except for her. So I want to just give her an honorable convo about it. But yeah, we can jump into the new units here now. Which God, this is gonna be tough. Freg, Fire Greg, Gilgamesh, Final Fantasy V. Obviously being adopted within the top 10 in some capacity. I mean, even our guilds and others have really enjoyed him. Is it enough to bump into him in the S, or is he like in the A tier? It's like a really powerful role player in these teams. This is a tough one for me.
Hmm.
I want to say A. I really do, and I
He's a minimum of A for me.
minimum A. Oh yeah, not even would never even dream. I'm going to put him right here next to Sephiroth, and here's my case for it: is that versus the evade teams, not a guarantee you win. We see lots of Pierce teams lose versus evade, despite the fact that he can be very accurate. We've seen him lose versus the Sad Alexia teams. Just yesterday, Pierce was losing against Chocobos in some of those matchups. And although we can beat some of the Sephiroth iterations, the Shrek iterations, obviously any of the Ice iterations, that's a gimme. This is not a slam dunk unit that I think people are like building against either. To say like he's changing a meta, he can play throughout all of the metas, but I don't think anyone's balancing around their teams for him. We're not suddenly stacking Pierce resistance out the wazoo, and we're not suddenly bringing a gajillion water units into the fold because we're afraid of Gilgamesh. He's an astounding unit. People are really going to like be confused by this, but I don't think he's like a meta trend-setting unit of quality.
Yeah. I mean, because he doesn't feel nearly as strong unless you bring specific partners to the fight that really enhance and kind of give him the things that he needs, like a barrier break from Ramada, like a dispel from Sephiroth. Um, and then you back that up with Resnick, who is the S tier of all of those teams.
Correct.
Kind of protecting what they bring innately to the fight with the barriers and enhancing their accuracy and things like that. Um, so I can't put him in S, but he is very, very strong. And currently, this is probably the best that he's going to be for quite a while.
I would agree with that too. X Death next on the block here. I'll kick this off personally. I think X Death is an A unit. I know we've hyped him to absolute hell, but a lot of that for me was because of how simply he could slot into the Shrek or Resnick team. It's an easy flip between him and Sephiroth, and that team he gets even healthier from a vision card perspective because of it. He obviously has the tools to compete at the top end. The only real meta thing for me is just that you now need a Doom Trust Stone. That certainly has enormous implications on your building. That he brings a completely new status element that you have to account for and can single handedly win them fights when you don't prep for it. But that team of Shreka, Resnick, Xdeath is a potential meta team because you have two S units in the team, not necessarily because Xdeath is like grossly exceptional. He's excellent. You've obviously heard us for weeks. But I don't know if it's him in particular. Like, if Shrek suddenly fell out of the meta, I don't think you would see Resnick X Death in a third. You know what I mean? I think like he's there because Shrek is that good.
Yeah, like that core team of Shrek and Resnick, like you can add a number of units to it, and it's going to be a competitive team. I don't know if you could say the same thing about X Death right now and Resnick or whoever, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's carrying the. He's not like the what we usually call it the bus driver
Yeah.
of that team. Um, he's very very strong though, and that those three units together as a combination do kind of enhance each other and form something better. But he hasn't impressed me enough that I would put him as an S right now.
No. And for me, we've played with a lot of our Mont and Thancred matchups, and we thought X Death was gonna like smoke Mont. Like that was kind of like the wheel where we said
Yeah.
like who's gonna beat what in the rock paper scissors, and he doesn't smoke Mont. He can hurt him more than most units can, but no more than many magic units. And we thought he was gonna do a lot better versus Thancred, and Thancred does way better versus X Death than we thought. And so maybe that's something where we diverge from JP a little bit. That the things he was supposed to do better against, I've been underwhelmed. He's not done as good as I thought he was going to do versus them.
It's still early at this point too. Like people are still trying to reincarnate him, and so we haven't seen him at his penultimates. I mean, we have a couple people who have maxed him out, and we know what he can do at his top. But I still think though that there's going to be more to come for Dark this year. Because there has been such a big investment into light. I'm sure that they're going to flip it back onto Dark as well. So I'm sure he's going to be a pillar unit in that, in this calendar year, but not good enough that I would say S right now.
I would agree with that. Very strong unit though. There's a reason why we put him there, and we kind of said that we thought he was going to have a smaller shelf life. Our value proposition was his commander ability and his TMR. Just so happened that he was a great unit that you could throw into your Shrek team with like no heavy lifting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Which brings us to Mont, and I'll kick things off if you want.
Sure.
I think Mont's worthy of the S. I do. I don't think you're necessarily gonna to see the adoption that you might of a brand new Sephiroth unit or a brand new Gilgamesh unit, but we're playing with him right now, and the results are kind of undeniable, and it's only going to get a little bit stronger from here, I think. And we're really only testing with like one variation of team, and the few that we are testing otherwise with, I think are ones that even JP didn't really tap into. That I think Mont is going to age well here. I think he's a unit you have to account for when you're thinking about your team compositions.
I think like if you ask me like what I think he is today, like I would probably say he's S. I mean, I would say he's A, but I see him going into S very, very quickly. Like when we get the vision card, as some of the
Correct.
new options start to come out online,
Yep.
that I'm willing to say S tier because I think that's where he's going to end up very
Very
soon.
soon.
And especially because we're playing with him like he's not even close to maxed for most of us.
Yep.
Um, so
Yep. Totally. Which brings us to the last four units who fell off, and then we can kind of just do a quick eyeball test to close things out here. We're still doing pretty good for time, hour 33. Not any longer than usual. I know for me personally, out of these four units, Rain, Moore, and Resnick, none of them make it back on. I think Lena makes it back on, and I'd be comfortable with her in C. But I think that's like my general idea. Yeah.
100% agreed on Moore and Rain. I was going to ask you about Resnick the Hot because I know you played with her a bit. I personally didn't play with her
I,
since the
I've,
upgrades.
I've been playing with her. So I've been running a mono dagger team in free match, and
Like I think she can evade a bit, but is the
she
damage anything?
barely, and
Is the disable anything?
she gets one shot by a lot once the null sure hit wears off. That's kind of the benefit of Ketone. Who this is where like my benchmark is. Ketone at least has the auto courage and the drain force to kind of like still like play with it, and the stop is such a powerful limit break to catch some people off guard. Resnick doesn't have that same like crutch or like boom or bust factor. I've made her evade a fair amount of things, but again, once that null shirt wears off, she's kind of like Starlight Elena, that she's just gone, and the damage isn't nearly anything substantial. And while the utility is fair, like I'm using this in free match, like it's not really, maybe D, maybe, but I still think Ketone is probably better.
Yeah, I was gonna say like she should probably B and D, like,
I'd keep
but
I
I personally haven't used her, so I would relinquish the floor.
I I don't know, man. I'll keep her. I'll keep her here on the Rising Tides. That dagger and Ninja Blade have a lot of good vision cards. This is one of those meta things that the game balance has smiled upon her class, not because she's a great unit.
Seems like a few people in the chat like her, so
Yeah,
maybe we'll give her the token D.
yeah, yeah. Again, and you think of someone like Yuffie. She's similar to Yuffie, to be honest. Yuffie's not a significantly better unit than Resnick the Hoppy. That they both do mid damage. They both have null sure hit, but they get one tap by a fair amount of things. And like, yeah, that's a fair comparison.
And I think hers is 4 turns, if I
Yeah,
remember correctly, which is an advantage over Yuffie.
I think so. I think so.
Um, on going back to the Lena point, I think she got some really nice upgrades, and I think C is fair. I think that it's obviously a huge step down from Lucio. It's a huge step down from Resnick, but even probably from Fina as well. So I think C is probably fair.
I agree. This to me
But
is
she has like some unique attributes that maybe in certain teams or certain fights, it could be kind of compelling.
if it wasn't for Staff Black Mage, I wouldn't feel as strongly. But the fact that Shreka and Exdeath are so good that now when I look at like my buff rotation with them, like she can now give Shreka the re-raise and gets the Earth Res and the Chain Res here as well, in addition to giving it to herself. But even like just this like her natural survivability has gotten a lot better, and the amount of like protect seal now because of the God, where'd it go? She can seal protect on hit somewhere. Where was it? I could have sworn she could. I know it's somewhere, but there's some kind of seal where she can seal now protect and or shell, and it's gotten a
I
lot
think it's
better.
protect.
It's protect. I just can't see where it is in the ability. Oh, here it is. Protects. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So now you have this protect 25% damage reduction as well. She can obviously spam some offensive here upgrades, the 20% buffs to them. So like I've noticed that helping them a lot in that mono black mage team. And just to Randall's point, I've never known Lena to. Oh no, Lena does not have the AI issue. That was one of the things they fixed. Lena used to have a cross shape buff that would repeat. She now has a diamond. It's a bigger shape, so you can much easier or much more easily capture both your teammates in this at once. So it will not repeat. Huge game changer for her.
And they changed it to 4 turns as
Thank you.
well.
Yes. Yeah. I have 40 spirits. Pretty awesome. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So that's all of them. I mean, now we're kind of wrapping this up. A quick eyeball test here. Anyone seem too high, too low? Even in chat, this is your opportunity now. Anybody that you think is like grossly over underrated? Again, our goal is to make sure that no one is ever 2 tiers away from where they should be. You can always make arguments why someone might be 1 tier higher or lower potentially, but
I think it's looking pretty good to me. At least
I
in the top 3 tiers. Um,
I think so too.
I'm sure like some people might be a little surprised about Veritas of Light as an A unit, but Honestly, like we've had some really good results with her, and I know other people have as well that are in the top 10. Um, she did really well in limited, and I just think it's kind of like the moon and sun are aligning here, where gun and lights are kind of coming to a head, and she's part of that equation, I think.
Yep, I agree.
So I don't think she lasts very long there, though.
No, I agree. Right, that's why I kind of kept her on the last square, just for that again subconscious bias. No, I'm pretty happy with this. Some units rising, falling a lot quicker than others, but I'm pretty comfortable. We'll probably call some more units on the next time once we get to this D tier as the game continues to evolve a little further. The S tier, I think, is still pretty comfy. And again, the A tier is all role players that play with the S tier too. Like I can't emphasize it enough that there it bleeds between there so much. Like Sephiroth plays in the S tier units. Gilgamesh plays with the S tier units, but they're not necessarily themselves that S tier unit, but they absolutely compete with them.
Yeah.
Uh, this last one, this is a good one. Randall Willis about Joom. Joom feels power crept. Feel like she's a free win against anyone recent. I'll be honest, it's been a hot minute since I've seen Joom play personally. I do know Greatsword has gotten an exceptional amount of good vision card love though, and I can't
She's
underrate.
looking really good with
I
Mont.
was just gonna say that. So she can reduce the enemy magic res pen for Mont, where that's like his one, I guess, weakness if you want to even call it a weakness. But he does give her the aura. I just know that I more commonly see Cloud as number one as a pairing, and typically you might go with support. I know we do it with Thancred here for a mono light team. I know people have had some dark overlaps with like Cloud and Mont, with Veritas, with Pain, with Cypher. I've yet to see Joom in many of them, which is why I think it's a good question to like just bring some attention to. But I think
I agree that she has been trending down for a while, and she's probably in danger of moving down. But I think that the great sword love as of late rises her to I think enough that she holds her spot. But yeah, I think she probably not for long though if she doesn't get upgrade soon.
no. But to be fair, we should probably test her this week, particularly with all the extra fire we got running around, to see what
Well,
she
you
can do.
mentioned Kel's earlier. He's been having some good results in the great sword team with her so far.
Okay, that's what I thought. I thought I've seen it, but I haven't seen it myself. Um, Cool. Okay. Well, we'll pause there. We don't have anything else. Again, new content wise, we'll get the official news tomorrow, but we at least covered most of the major things coming with the Mont Vision card, the Trials of Reckoning, the Mastery upgrades, the Grand Arena starting. I'm sure there's going to be some other stuff too, but at least now got to cover some big topic questions about the meta and the balance of the game. The game balance is great right now. This new map is very cool. I love this map. I mean, this it like frustrates me sometimes, but this is such an interesting map in how like the starting spots are aligned where like units like move to the furthest corner to buff, and you can get like up to three buffs on this map. And oftentimes you'll see them like spread off in two completely different directions, and it feels like crap, but sometimes that's the right play. I know we've had a couple teams where like Mont will go one way, Thancred goes another. You're like, no, stay together, but like that's the right play, and they end up like converging and like uh, Eiffel towering someone. Yeah.
I agree. It's been a good map, much better than the last one with all the pillars and stuff.
Yeah.
Because we've been wanting to play the missile team. We just got those units, so it felt really bad to put them away on the last map. But it's wide open on this one. It's a good range map.
Yep, absolutely. But we'll call things there. Thanks again so much for everybody joining us live. Hopefully, we got to at least some of your questions. I know we had a lot to cover, so we may not have stopped everywhere. But per usual, please, if you want an answer on something, feel free to leave a comment on the video, DM us on the Discord, leave it anywhere, and we'll always integrate these hot takes and questions into what we do. But that's all we got for now. Good luck pulling on the vision card for those.